On the inflation expectations. So a couple of good articles across the Wall Street Journal and CNBC today covering some factors for inflation. And I thought they were just very interesting. So I was going to talk about that today. But for the past few decades, prices or inflation has been kept in check. But now things are changing, right? The pandemic has made a lot of changes and made a lot of disruptions that are changing the way people view a lot of things. And one of those big changing factors is reverse in globalization. So in July of 2011, the U.S. hit about 32% of their GDP was due to trade. By October of 2019, right, just kind of before we started really getting into this pandemic stuff, it had already decreased to 25%. It tanked obviously down to like 20% during the pandemic, and now it's back up to like 24. But the point is, there seems to be a longer term trend here where after 2011, we've seen to just kind of be less and less, which I think has to do with trade wars and all these tariffs we're throwing on people, as well as a push for make American. But the problem with that is, okay, so we're not doing as much trade. That's not contributing as much to our GDP. The problem here is that trade has deflationary measures, and what it does is it creates competition. More competition creates doesn't let people raise their prices. So when you look at from the 1990s to 2019, goods increased in price by only about 20%, while services increased by about 147%. The difference there is because you were getting a lot of other goods being imported and being bought and sold from other places, so you were able to afford to pay for things more cheaply that another country could make more cost effectively, and you didn't have to make it. Versus you could sell things that you were better at making, and then other people would pay for those things. So it was more efficient. But we're starting to see kind of an age of protectionism, right? When you look at the United States and China, especially, people saying, we don't want to rely on other supply chains, we don't want to rely on other countries, we want to rely on us, and that means that you may be producing more products that you don't have the comparative advantage for, so you're going to be spending more. It's going to be naturally more expensive to make them, meaning inflation will naturally increase as you refuse to get lower cost products from other countries because you want to protect your supply chains. This also became a very big deal during COVID because we realized just how much we rely on all these other places for goods and how much of an impact it had when those supply chains shut down and the things that we're seeing. So people started to say we need to bring more of that stuff onshore for our own benefit, and we need to build them even if it costs more money. So that could help drive up inflation. And this is great. Again, like I said, it's great to have you're building your own products when you have something like COVID, because your country can be self-sufficient and you can build your own products. You don't have to rely on trade. But then the rest of the time, you're not using your comparative advantages and you're producing things you're not as efficiently as you could be, and therefore you're forcing inefficiency by saying we're going to create these things even if there's an easier way to do it or it's cheaper to buy it. Another changing factor is the aging demographic. So we've heard about this from America, we've heard about this in China, but in general, right, in economics, when you have lots of people in the labor force, those people are generally saving as they work. And in general, in aggregate, workers produce more than they consume, right? So if you have a giant working class, then you're going to be generally as a country saving more money. And that is deflationary, right? Because you're saving money, you're not spending as much, you're thinking about retirement, so you're not putting as much demand into the market. However, the flip side of that is the dependencies, the literal dependence. Now, in the United States, you're seeing that you're having more U.S. dependence growing very rapidly, and they generally put a lot more demand and they do a lot more spending, especially when they're younger. So you're seeing a lot more demand and spending as we're having more dependence for individuals in the country. And even in some countries, so for instance in Japan, they've noted that an aging population is deflationary, because in Japan, which is one of the oldest populations by age, they've struggled in the last 20 years. Central bank has struggled to get inflation up. The only thing is, well, if you look at Japan, the people getting older and retiring, but you're also seeing a decrease in birth rates. You're not seeing the same thing in China and in the United States. You're seeing an increase in birth rates. So you're seeing more dependence, and you're seeing more people retiring from the market. So they're going to start to spend more of their money, right? The boomers contain about 50% of America's wealth right now, and most of the boomers are retiring if they haven't done so already. So they're going to have money to spend now and put more demand into the market to raise prices and cause inflation. And they also have more dependence that will be spending, and you're seeing a decreasing size of the labor market at this time, at least for the next couple of years. So we could just be seeing natural inflation as a result of that, as well as just people being able to spend more money. And the third major point here is the maturity of e-commerce. So almost as of now, almost about 15% of retail sales come from e-commerce, as opposed that's 5 times greater than it was in 2005, which is natural progression, I would say. And price transparency and fast delivery among these companies forced businesses to compete. They call this the Amazon effect. So it kept prices low and kept everybody in control. And as people like Uber and Airbnb also help drive deflationary pressures because, these digital platforms, their goal was to get as much market share as possible, not necessarily profit. So their goal was keep low prices, keep everything under control, get a big client base. But now a lot of these companies are being pressured for profit. So you're seeing prices in Uber rides going up, your Lyft rides, you're seeing prices in Airbnbs going up. You're seeing them try to get more margins now. So now their goal is to make money on the market share that they have. So you're going to see some natural price increases there as well, because over 2015, 2009, over 2015 to 2019, the average year retail prices fell 4% a year, but that's been reversed as of COVID in March 2020, 2%. As we move into a more technology-driven society, we may start seeing more higher and higher prices in online retail because more and more people are using them. There's much more demand coming from there. And a new survey by the Wall Street Journal of some economists show an estimated level of inflation at 2.58% from 2021 to 2023. Levels not seen since 1993, so definitely higher than 2% target inflation. 58% of those economists don't see the Fed raising rates until at least 2022, which is fine because we think they might be raising them by 2023. And the Fed's preferred inflation gauge, the overall PCE index, which includes food and energy, rose 3.9% in May, which is almost twice as much as the 2% target. So we know the Fed is saying, hey, we've been dealing with low inflation for the last 10, 15 years, and especially out of COVID, we want to make sure we balance the markets and unemployment with higher amounts of inflation. But at what point does it become too much, right? At what point do you because the argument is still here, is it transitory or is it going to stick around for a period of time? And really, no matter what you see here, no matter what you think, higher inflation is going to be disruptive to consumers, to markets, to homeowners, to policymakers, to businesses, planning their expenses, buying things, selling things, paying off debts, eating away at earnings, eating away at gains in markets. So either way, inflation is up, even in the short term. If it is transitory, in the short term, you're going to see that they might start having these effects in the markets, even though it looks like the markets are shrugging it off, because I think there's a battle here between market participants as well. People piling into bonds and saying, listen, we think it's going to be transitory versus people who don't think it's going to be transitory, right? People who think this is going to end and things are going to go back to normal versus people who think it's going to stick around for a while. So definitely those are three big factors. And I thought that was really interesting. I thought those were really interesting points about how we could see inflationary and deflationary pressures that have nothing to do with markets or, necessarily with debt. It has everything to do with just the people in the economy, the workforce, their spending habits, and the way business is done, and just the growth of technology. So we could just be seeing some natural drivers of inflation in the next couple of months, next couple of years in general, besides the COVID fiasco. So, yeah.
Okay, definitely something to look out for.
Oh, yeah.
Not fun. Great. Joy, hello. And with that, we can go inflation.
Into our... Josh just had a little bit of a stroke there.
No more inflation. Oh, geez.
And with that, we can go into.
It's gonna make your Adidas shirts cost twice as much, Josh. I'm gonna be able to buy so many anymore.
I'm just I can't even. Can we go through deflation, please? Can we just increase the value of money and go the other way? Just the other way.
You don't want lots of deflation because then you get stagnation. Nobody wants to make anything. Everything buys too much.
Buy crypto.
That's not the solution or in relation to this problem. That's not. No.